Welcome to Data Drivers. I'm your host, Andrew Smith of Think Uncommon. In this series, we explore essential strategies for retailers to harness the power of data and analytics. We'll guide you through the tools and techniques that enable a deep understanding of your customers' preferences and behaviours. You'll learn how to optimize everything from back-end operations to logistics and supply chain management, maximizing efficiency and even enhancing customer satisfaction. Before we get started, don't forget to check the description below for information and news about what's coming up from the Retail Cloud Alliance. Now, let's dive in.
Real-time data and pricing decisions can be a game changer. It can allow you instant insights into, POC, your systems, think about demand shifts, plan for inventory levels, kind of see what's happening. Balance is really the key. There's been obviously customer pushback and concerns when it's been revealed that, dynamic pricing is being used or surge pricing and things like that. You also run into the risk of maybe a lot of your long-term contracts or your loyalty programs and things like that have not really been set up to deal with dynamic pricing and customer behaviors that may come with that. Making sure your contracts and your contract platforms are aligning with what you have out there with your supply agreements, so that as you see those swings up and down, that you are actually still making money and managing your markets that way. It really is about filtering through and making sure that you're meeting those long-term brand goals and doing it in a way that's still continuing to drive consumer and customer confidence.
Data in retail today is everything. And when you get to real-time data, it's, the cream of the crop. The data is not only helping with figuring out what the best pricing can be, but it helps with more accurate demand forecasting, margin protection. I think of data as kind of the key for a jigsaw puzzle. If you're trying to put a jigsaw puzzle together without the picture of what the end product's going to look like, it's going to be extremely difficult to do so. The only time that we really recommend not using data is when it's without context or you're looking at a trend. So think of one data point that spikes. We want to steer clear of using that particular data because it's not going to be reliable for the long term. Without alignments to other operations or marketing line of businesses within your organization, so when you use data from a single silo and not running it past all the rest of your organizations, it can cause confusion and or error.
Today, retailers face a dual challenge, right? One is they have to deliver sophisticated data-driven pricing models, but at the same time, customer trust and customer stickiness is very, very vital. We at Cognizant are helping brands navigate this balance through a combination of AI-powered tools, human-centric or user-centric design, and strategic governance. When we look at this particular aspect, retailers have evolved from rule-based pricing models to a complex AI-driven pricing model to make real adjustments on real time. One is predictive pricing engines so that we can anticipate demands and elasticity, simulation models to broaden your test horizons before deployment. The modern age of agentic AI and agentic architecture, how can we induce ethics and compliance agents so that there is responsibility in the pricing decisions? For anything and everything, you need to be having a clear strategy, vision, and transparent protocols.
It really comes down to trust with the shopper, which is about transparency. And so shoppers don't necessarily need to understand the algorithm, but they need to be able to trust the prices that retailers are offering. So if you take Amazon, for example, they're super clear about what their value proposition is. They're not to be beat in store or online. And I think retailers that make it more of a mystery, or at least pricing is inconsistent, have a tougher time building trust with shoppers. That same Gartner study talked about how 79% of shoppers have encountered some sort of unexpected price scenario in the past year. So things like price surging or hidden fees or rate hikes. So I think just really being clear about how you're using that data and what your value proposition is really critical.
Dynamic pricing works most often and is most successful in retail sectors that have high SKU velocity, really competitive landscaping, extremely price-sensitive customers, and then where you have the access to real-time data and analytics. We're seeing a lot of success in grocery and in convenience. The reason is there's a lot of perishable inventory that dynamic pricing used on to help move that product when it approaches their expiration date. High purchase frequency. Obviously, people are grocery shopping on a weekly and or daily basis. And they're both, from a grocery and convenience standpoint, a very tight margin sector of retail. The next would be fashion and apparel. Really why it works and why we're seeing it work in this area is from a trend standpoint. So thinking about mid-season to sell-through, as well as the demand and the inventory levels that are needed for bathing suits come spring, or jackets during the fall and winter months. But really figuring out how to price that to meet the demand that is in that particular area. So being able to rapidly change pricing as new, higher quality products hit the market, so you can reduce the pricing on your older level, and then really highly competitive, especially with the push of e-commerce. That's where, the Best Buys of the world, the Targets of the world, the Fry's of the world are seeing a lot more competition today.
I had the incredible experience of working on the launch of Amazon's price matching system. I think it really comes down to writing the correct creative brief. When you're writing your business requirements for your dynamic pricing and deciding what data you're going to collect and what decisions you want AI to make for you as a retailer. For example, if you're giving it a list of retailers to price match, make sure you're using a list of retailers that reflect your shopper's current shopping experience, really looking at who are your true competitors. So I think it comes down to the logic that you put in place to begin with. And you have to balance that with the fact that gathering competitive pricing data is really expensive and it's time consuming. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for error, not giving the algorithms the correct information. So some of the safeguards I think that we put in place were some price gouging logic. So looking at, making sure that we're not raising prices above some market threshold, using a lot of auditing reports on the regular, and even having real-time price increase and decrease alerts. You have to balance the level of automation with the level of oversight that you're willing to spend on a pricing system.
So where the technology is going and what's getting really interesting is the ability to use those large data sets that retailers have, and honestly consumer goods, about where things are selling through your point of sale systems and such, what they're selling for, how people are responding to promotions, and what's driving customer behavior. And now with the use of AI, generative AI, and some of the other, technologies there, and being able to combine this data, you can really start to get a deep understanding of both where the price points are for your customers, what truly is driving their behavior. Did that promotion, that information drive more behavior or not? Because you can really tie back to all of that, both through your point of sales, through your online sales. So it's really being able to really get into that deep data and use AI technologies, as well as, understandings from both your contracts and your supply chain of where these things are happening and how you can then either dynamically adjust prices or what is actually really working for you as a brand, as a retailer, and how you can get into deeper and better that relationship with your customers, and also where the boundaries are, where you're pushing what's working, what's not, what's alienating, what's breaking them more comfortable.
How do you reduce distrust? If consumers perceive pricing as a manipulative or unfair, then, as I talked about, the brand trust will go away. So ensure transparency, communicate to the customers on when what is going to change, so that they understand the dynamic pricing models that are really enforced in certain sectors. I would say this is how we should navigate with constant communication, predictable patterns. Always lead by empathy and be consumer conscious. At the same time, you got to run your own business. All this really puts together an effective pricing model, adjust the price dynamically, and at the same time, trust is built in and consumer index always is higher.